Season 5 of Yellowstone is on the cusp of drawing to a close, and after an almost 2-year wait for Season 5 Part 2, the 6 episodes that we were promised are starting to feel a little lackluster, and almost like they're lacking a little bit of direction. Taylor Sheridan has been at the wheel in birthing this universe that I absolutely love, and for the most part it's been a phenomenal ride, with most of Yellowstone being incredible, 1883 being outstanding, and 1923 being a solid addition too. However, as we're 2 episodes away from the ending of Season 5, after recently watching Episode 12, I can't help but feel like something is up with the show. We've had 3 deaths in 4 episodes, and it just feels like there's so much that needs wrapping up, but there's just not enough time. So I thought I'd share what I feel Yellowstone Season 5's biggest problems are, and where it's gone a bit wrong. So let's get into it. Here is Yellowstone Season 5's biggest problem. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The amount of deaths and what it means. One way it feels like this show is almost highlighting that it doesn't really know what it's doing is with the way that it's just killing off characters to make some kind of impact. Almost to give us viewers something else to focus on around the story that's lost quite a lot of its weight. This was most felt with Colby in episode 12 because it just felt so unnecessary and out of the blue. Every death has had a reason behind it, so I'll give the show that. For example, John Dutton because Kevin Costner left the show, Sarah because the company that she hired got concerned after John Dutton's death was being looked into as a homicide and they didn't want her as a weak link, and Colby because it supported how dangerous the life of a cowboy could be. But the sheer amount of deaths that have been occurring almost feels cheap, and it actually feels like it's taken away from the story that's been developing. For example, Sarah was such an interesting character in the way that she was using Jamie to get what she wanted and to turn him against his family. Her rivalry with Beth was something that also felt like it was going to come to a head before the show's close, but it never actually amounted to anything because she was killed before there was the chance for it to happen on screen. Sarah was almost the puppet master behind Jamie's actions, and I just feel like she was killed way too soon. Something which has now almost rendered Jamie's character a bit lost and confused. I'd also say the death of Colby didn't have to happen at all. We've seen through Rip and his mindset in this season of the show what it means to be a cowboy, how many of them give up a lot for that life, and how there are several risks involved. Colby and Tita were characters that almost deserved a happy ending, because amongst all of the chaos that Yellowstone has within it, it would have been nice to have seen 2 characters that aren't the Duttons getting some kind of send-off that showed that it wasn't all drama, death, and rivalries. I think the amount of deaths in the show highlights that Sheridan might be just a bit lost on the map, and Kevin Costner leaving almost put him on a diversion that has made him struggle to find a way to get back on track. It's understandable. Costner was the face of the show and a huge figure, but the deaths and lack of substance within a lot of the story is something that's making this season feel just a bit too dramatic and inconsequential for its own good. I'm genuinely questioning if we're gonna have another death in the next episode, because at this point it actually wouldn't surprise me. The show was always better than just sprinkling deaths around. The Kevin Costner issue. The whole Kevin Costner and Taylor Sheridan feud is something that pretty much marked the beginning of the end of the show as we knew it. As I just said, John Dutton is such an iconic figure in not only Yellowstone but also TV in general. He embodied the traits of the Duttons that came before him, and he was the powerhouse figure that the show had and needed to thrive. Let's also bear in mind the acting chops of Kevin Costner are significantly stronger than the others around him because he's been around for longer and is considered a legend of Hollywood. He brought something to John Dutton that no other actor did with their character in the show. With him now gone, you lose that weight on set and the dynamic changes dramatically, and the overall quality of the acting does diminish slightly. Because there's been no true replacement. The show has an empty hole within it, which is John Dutton and Kevin Costner. Yes, killing him off was probably the only option that was available to Taylor Sheridan, as Costner just wasn't coming back. So it was an unavoidable situation, but I just can't deny the fact that his absence has weakened the show. With John Dutton's leadership, there was direction in the show, and there was a heart and core that we would always go back to, and that was the Dutton Ranch. With him now gone, it feels like that heart has been ripped out of the show and there just isn't that core that is everything revolving around it. The characters are just off doing their own things, and it doesn't really feel like there's a strong story that everything is building towards. I know we've got the market equity story and we've got the death of John Dutton being investigated, but with him gone, it just doesn't carry the same weight. John Dutton is definitely missed in this season of the show, and it's such a shame that Sheridan and Costner couldn't have worked something out for the sake of the show and also the fans. The lack of time with characters. One thing that I feel the show always did a really good job of was allowing us to have a solid amount of time with the characters. Time with understanding their backstories, their pasts, and how they came to be the sort of person that they were in the present day. We got this a lot through the use of flashbacks, and the casting and performances were always so strong. We even had it in the early parts of Season 5. However, with Part 2 returning, that was something that was also thrown to the wayside. In fact, I'd tell a lie. We got a flashback of 6 weeks, the time period in the build-up to John Dutton's death. Something that wasn't even directed that well because we'd be made to guess if it was a flashback or the present day whenever the scenes would cut. I think the show could have most definitely kept the actor Josh Lucas and had the flashbacks that were often so interesting to see from when John Dutton was younger. That way there might have still been that sense of familiarity in having John Dutton on screen. Right now in the show, it just feels like Beth isn't really being her usual self, and she's not having that much screen time either. We're just constantly hearing about how she's going to go after Jamie, but it's never really happening, and it's not happened yet. Rip is in this somber, closed-off state where he's mourning John, which I totally understand, but he's also watching the ranch fall apart, and it's changed his personality dramatically. And also, considering Jamie knew of John's death and is a suspect of Sarah's death, and he's pretty much enemy number one of the Duttons, we're just not getting that much screen time with him. It's almost as if now that he's on his own, he's become a lot less valuable. The only story that I'm really enjoying in this season of the show is the one with Casey involved. Casey has almost taken over the John Dutton role and has the blood of James Dutton running through him in the way that he wants to protect his family and get revenge for somebody feeling like they could just kill his father. But outside of that, it's just a bit more difficult to feel as connected to the show, especially when the 4-6's ranch and everything that they sell feels like product placement galore, and a large portion is just getting made up of cutaway scenes and montages of them rounding up cattle and riding horses. I get that it's a show about cowboys, but it almost feels like it's just been put in there to fill up the quota of time for an episode. I want to see Rip bossing it, Beth losing her cool, and Jamie quaking in his boots. I just hope we get that in the final 2 episodes. Where does the show go? Well, there's only 2 episodes of the show left, and it feels like we're nowhere near a conclusion at the moment. So unless the final 2 episodes have an elongated runtime, I don't quite know how this is going to be wrapped up. When it was found out that Costner was leaving, I feel like we were all under the impression that this was going to be the end of the show and the final season. However, in more recent times, it's been said that a season 6 could well be on the horizon, and Taylor Sheridan might have made a U-turn on his decision. I really don't know what to make of that. On one hand, I love the show because there's nothing else like it that's out there, but on the other hand, if the following seasons are going to be like what we've had in Part 2, I almost feel like the show should be put to bed. I don't want the show to continue this investigation of John Dutton over the course of another season. It's just not needed. I'd much rather Taylor Sheridan focus on giving us more seasons of 1923 and even 1943, which is a show that's on the horizon. Sheridan is the king of westerns in the modern era, and even the Bass Reeves show was enjoyable to watch too, which wasn't connected to Yellowstone. So I'd rather him explore more of the Duttons universe and the time frame prior to 2024, because nobody else is really doing it, and we know that he can do it so well. I think it's a shame that the show has gotten to this point. I don't think there's a way of saving it completely, but there's definitely a way of the show redeeming itself before the season finale in 2 weeks' time. I just hope that there aren't any more deaths just for the sake of it, and the next death that we get is either Jamie or Beth as they face off against one another. As I said at the start, I love the show. It's one of my favorites, and I am enjoying parts of this season. But it's just so clear to see the change in these few episodes that we've had. I'm doing this video because I'm genuinely intrigued to see if any other fans of the show have the same concerns, or if you're genuinely not minding it that much. So let me know in the comments. So, there you have it, Yellowstone Season 5's biggest problem. If you want to see more videos on Yellowstone, then click on the card in the top corner. There's an entire playlist there where I break down every episode from Season 5. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find more of your favorite TV series and movies being broken down. What do you think of Season 5 of Yellowstone? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.